It just depends. I tried, and it does seem cool. It's very cool when you're there working. It's awesome. You've got stuff to do, and you're working, and then there's so many amazing places and restaurants, and now like the artist, community, and it's awesome. I love the weather. But when you're actually living there every day, for me, it was just the loneliest place in the world.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, I think it's true. Everyone says it's car culture. I think it's true. Everyone is in their car and then they go home. And it's so far.
It's sprawling.
Sprawling. So you can't just bump into somebody. I think the thing I missed the most after having lived in New York for quite a while was just striking up a conversation at the deli or, maybe on the subway. You don't, there's none of that happening. So you don't really get to even feel the flavor of the people and the cultures. Everyone just kind of stays away from each other. And then everything has to be planned. There's no spontaneity. That's what I missed. You can walk down, anywhere here and stop in a cafe or get your nails done, whatever it is. And you're going to talk to people.
There's something that, people from outside New York, outside the city don't understand of how difficult it is asking somebody to come to your borough from a different borough. But that is nothing compared to when I'm in Los Angeles and I'm trying to meet friends and I have to choose between my East Side friends and my West Side friends.
I bet. And that's a big deal. And then you have to deal with where are we going to park and then where are we going to meet? And yeah, it's a lot. But there's a lot of trade-offs too. I love the beach so much. And I really do love the weather too.
You're a West Coaster by birth as well.
Yeah. And I'm lucky that I still get to go back. My parents are there. My brothers are there. I also have family, brothers and a sister in Southern California. So I'm pretty lucky.
Have you considered the Pacific Northwest?
Oh, I did briefly. But now, I have a 13-year-old son, and he was young when I was considering it, or we were considering it. But, our son's from Ethiopia, and so there's not a lot of diversity. At least I was considering Eugene, which is my hometown. I think I want a little bit more culture. I want him to be around, all sorts of culture, and the best melting pot is here in Brooklyn.
Well, I would argue the best melting pot is here in Queens. But
got it. Okay.
Okay, we are the most ethnically diverse county in the United States. I just, I have the data to prove it up.
I believe you. You're right.
I was having this exact conversation with my therapist today when I was talking about moving, and it was sort of it was an afterthought because I'm looking at Beacon and New Paltz, which I like quite a lot. It's a college town. And then I do the thing where I go to Wikipedia and then look up the demographics, and it's 95, 96%.
Yep. And most people are from the city too. That's the thing. I wrote a song called "We Moved Our City to the Country" because it's when I first moved up to Woodstock and bought a place up there. Everyone you bump into is coming up from the city and then going out for sushi, and it's you gotta mix it in with the real local scene to really know what it feels like to really be from there. I like that better than being a tourist.
What's funny is that was her counterpoint. She was like, "Don't worry, a lot of people are moving there from the city."
Right.
So which is to say, it's not going to be as white.
Okay. Well,
theoretically.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's true. There's other places up there too, though. There's Newburgh. There's, places that are.
I'm a Californian who has spent my entire time out here living in the city. So, once you get to Westchester, I just lose all track of where anything is. Okay. I don't know the delineations between. Okay. I just happen to have gone up to New Paltz, during the pandemic and really liked the nature and everything else up there.
Yeah, it's beautiful, right? It's really beautiful. And for me, Woodstock was a little too far away for a commute, and I tried it a lot. It's for Brooklyn door to door, sometimes 3 hours, sometimes 5, but that's a little much for a commute. I'd say Beacon and it's on the train line too, so places like that would be great.
Now, when you say commute, what do you mean by that?
Right. Well, I mean, I started teaching, and during COVID, when we were quarantining up there, I would drive. I also have my relationship here in Brooklyn now, and I would drive down like sometimes 2-3 times a week. That's a lot. It's a lot of driving, and that kind of time, it's just a lot of time in the car.
I'm trying to get the timeline here. You were in Los Angeles, was like around the time of your second record. Is that right?
Let's see. No, it was more like my third, which, what was that? 2000. I was there from 2002 to 2005. It was very brief.
3 years is not an insignificant amount of time.
I gave it a shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it the music business that brought you out there?
No, it was actually post 9/11. I was living in Brooklyn Heights, right across from the towers, and I kind of wanted to move west anyway, and things had changed for me, and living in the city was really tough, right? And I had CNN on all the time, which was probably really unhealthy. So I didn't want to leave my apartment. Right. It was not the kind of life I wanted to live. So I had some friends in Los Angeles, and yeah, the music business is there. A part of it's there. So that was compelling.
What brought you up to Woodstock?
Wanting nature. When I moved back from Los Angeles, this is when I got together with my ex, and I kind of made a deal. I was like, if I'm moving back to the city, I need a respite. I need to have a little escape plan. So just much like you, when you're talking about wanting some more space and wanting to have trees and, nature around you, I was able to find a place in Woodstock so that we could have like both. We had the best of both scenarios.
That's the ideal.
Yeah. However, it is one of those like velvet handcuff situations. Be careful what you wish for.
A monkey's paw.
Is that it? A monkey's paw. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about, wow, poor me. I had 2 homes. It was so hard. But, it's just expensive as all hell. Like that was really the thing that got me near the end. It was just too expensive. And then you're just spending a lot of time on the road. And I've moved around so many times in my life, and also being on tour, I really am just longing to just be in one place and have one roof, one septic tank, I still love to travel, but I really want home base to be like one place.
I've got a lot of friends, my age, who are starting to have kids now, and this is the constant back and forth is, how feasible it is and how much you actually want to raise a kid in the city.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really big factor to put in. And schools, like, we're going through nightmares just trying to find the right school, and the lottery for the public school is really hard. So, now that, my son's doing well, and we've placed him in high school, and all of that, hopefully, knock on wood, is done. Hopefully he'll stay in one place, but it's really not easy. It's not easy to raise a kid in the city. It's true.
Does he have musical ambitions?
No, he does not, unfortunately.
Have you tried? Have you kind of like nudged him?
Yes. I had him in piano lessons, and he's naturally talented, and he's really good. He's a little bit of a show-off, does not want to slow down at all, but if he would have like locked it in and really committed, he'd be great. But his interests changed. He got a little older. The pandemic hit, and that made having lessons on Zoom kind of difficult. But he pushed through for a while there, and then I think the screens and the video games, especially during COVID, it just was really hard to manage, and I think it changed the trajectory for a lot of families, and it's just hard for me to get him back on the piano.
He's 13, and he's got the foundation now, so he
can always go back for sure.
He'll connect with it at some point. I hope
so.
Who knows? Like, and I'm not suggesting he is at all, but like I was a real asshole when I was 13. It's not an easy time.
Right. Exactly. You came around.
Your mom was a music teacher?
Correct. Yeah.
So how much did she kind of nudge you in that direction?
Well, it was just a given. It was like, it was there for me. And I just, she and I have a kind of an intense relationship at the beginning because my father died before I was even 2. So I believe she kind of, more than her other kids, I hate to say it, and my other siblings are much older and from a different father. She just kind of took me and we really connected over music especially. And I have wonderful memories of us both watching Sesame Street and Electric Company and all of the shows that I loved growing up that were all about music, or at least I really, dug the music side of things, and so did she. And then I'd go and help her teach, or I'd be her little helper. And I saw her on stage a lot too, because she was in the local productions of like On a Clear Day You Can See Forever, and all of these musical theater productions. So I was already hooked. She did not have to force me to do anything.
Are you a Yo Gabba Gabba family? Did you?
Oh, I love Yo Gabba Gabba. So I would say at one point, yes, I really loved that
he's 13
show.
now, to be fair. But.
Exactly. He's a little old, but I think he'd have fond memories of he and I watching Yo Gabba Gabba. I loved it. It was such a cute, really clever show. They invited me to be a guest on one of their live shows when they were touring amphitheaters. And so I was a guest doing the peanut butter stomp or something. And Biz Marquis was there. I remember we hung out a little bit. I know.
How was he? Was he as great as
he was really charming and awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You did a I don't know, would you say it's a kids music project?
Correct. Yeah.
Is that fair? Okay.
Yeah, kids' music project, for lack of a better term at the moment.
I'm looking at I read your bio, which you definitely didn't write, on your website, and it says it's for, quote, young music enthusiasts.
Yes. Of all ages, I think, even after that, right? Because it's really the whole point of Melodian is to spark the inspiration in children, but also grown-ups. I can't tell you how many times I've played shows as Tracy Bonham, and people come up to me knowing my background as, classically trained or even beginning to be an educator, and they'd say, I wish I had a teacher that wasn't boring or mean or discouraging, and I wish I had someone to inspire me, and I wish the material back then was inspiring. And that's the whole point of Melodian, is to create material that's not just by rote. It's like it's going to stir something in a child or in an adult to want to practice. That was always something that I really look back at my teachers from junior high and high school, and they instilled the joy of practice in me. And for any, discipline, it's wonderful, the joy of learning and the wanting to get better and practice and just taking things and under a microscope and slowing things down. It's so much fun, but you have to have the right teacher, because if you read that on paper, you'd be like, boring. But you've got to have the right kind of teacher that instills this passion. And that's what I'm hoping to do with Melodian.
What is it about those lessons? Because you're right. Music, especially when it's forced on a child, can be incredibly arduous and boring. And that's probably a huge, when I think about becoming a writer, a big part of the reason why I became a writer is because I had some good English teachers. And that's probably a lot of people's stories.
I think so. I think it really just depends on how it's delivered to the child. And if someone is if you're intuitive as an educator, and you can maybe be on their level, but not, so don't be pedantic about things, but teach from a place of knowing where they're at and then finding their strengths and then helping them from there. Not just this is how much I know and I'm going to give it to you and you must take it. I don't find teaching like that very helpful.
You anticipated going down a more classical route with your career.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I really did.
You studied, you did the whole thing.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be in a symphony orchestra. I knew I wasn't good enough to be a soloist, and I went to school with those kinds of students. And I was like, okay, that's not me. And I was practicing a lot, like 6 hours a day. I'd wake up early. I'd put on my big, heavy practice mute so I wouldn't bother my neighbors or my roommates or whatever. And I was really diligent.
I should say it's the violin, which is an awful thing to hear people practice.
It can be, especially if you're not that good. Oh my God. I pay kudos to my mom when I was first starting out, because it must have been a couple of years of just anguish for her ears.
Listen, my sister, and I think she's going to be excited that I brought her up on this episode with you.
Hi, sis.
Not in a great way. She never quite made it to that level, and it was just the agony.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a really hard instrument to learn, and you have to have so much perseverance. I was always so jealous of those Suzuki kids that started at age 3. But again, I have some real misgivings about Suzuki anyway, that method. But, the ones that really were like starting really young, they had such an advantage,
But you got to have a childhood.
Yes, that's true. Exactly. I agree there. And I'm lucky that I did have a childhood. So I knew in the back of my mind it wasn't, I don't think I really thought I was going to be a classical player. I knew it was going to be in my life always. And the reason why I went to conservatory, I went to the University of Southern California music school. That's all I could do. My SAT scores were terrible. I practiced really hard on the violin. I got a full scholarship, and my teacher was like, good thing you play the violin so well because, I don't know what else you'd be doing in your life. So I followed that.
It's a real backhanded compliment.
I know. Exactly. I knew what she was getting at. She was really old and she was really German. And I just was like, okay, I get it, Alice Schoenfeld. You're right. But I also had singing, and I had a childhood where I was involved in musical theater, and I played the piano. I know it's all music and drama and stuff, but I felt like that was a well-rounded exposure to the things that I liked. And so then I decided I wanted to sing just because it was easier, but also it was a better way for me to communicate and express myself.
You were always able to just stand up in front of people and sing?
Yeah. Yeah, from a very early age, yeah.
It's such an intimate thing to do.
It can be, yeah, you're right.
But it comes naturally to you.
Well, if you're a ham like I am and was, I wouldn't say it's so intimate. It's kind of like I'm just showing off. Totally, I wanted to be the center of the stage, make people laugh. My mom called me her little clown, so it's kind of true. So I wouldn't say it was intimate, but now as I'm older, I think it's very intimate, and I'm really starting to. I'm so much older, but I'm developing this relationship that I have with my singing, with my voice that I never had before, even because I think as you get to middle age, you start to go inward more, and you don't focus on what other people think of you so much, which is such a blessing. So I'm all about middle age. I'm so fortunate to be here. But the intimacy now is with myself and really trying to be more authentic when I sing, rather than constantly, like I used to kind of make myself miserable. There was a while there where I was like, am I really enjoying being on stage? Because I'm constantly critiquing what just happened. Like, ooh, that note's out of tune. What if this note's going to be out of tune? And, the gears are churning and you're not even in the present moment.
Yeah, this was actually something I really wanted to talk about. And this is getting back again to, I think, to the bio you have on your site. But there were two things that really jumped out at me, and they're directly connected. One of them, I think one of them actually comes from a post you did about some of the health issues that you've had lately. And in that you said, I've been having a lot of defining moments lately. And then from the bio, it's over the past several years, I did a ton of work on myself. Those are obviously very closely connected. And it sounds like a big part of perhaps why singing has become much more personal for you.
That's a nice perspective there. Yeah, I feel so blessed to have music and to be able to sing. But when I wrote the part in my bio, because I did write some of the bio.
I know this is jokingly at the end.
Yeah, exactly, you're being sarcastic.
Yeah,
everybody writes their own bios now. Whenever I read a bio, I'm like, totally they wrote
Well,
that.
listen. And the reason why it's clear that you wrote this bio, and this is why I'm keep joking about it, is because it's personal in a way that somebody else wouldn't dare, I think, to write that
cool.
as a bio.
Right, I get you. Yeah, and you know what? I'd love some advice on that, because it's like, if people really know that I'm writing it, should I just be like, so then I did this, like, instead of talking in the third person? It felt so weird for me to actually write in the third person when it was so clearly obvious that I was writing it. But I still don't know, like, the tricks of the trade on there. So
you want my writerly advice as a professional writer? I really like it, and I really like the little wink at the end. I think it's great. I think it's I read a lot of press releases, and it's clear when things are written by somebody who had a deadline or isn't super familiar with that happens all the time, and you're kind of pouring your guts out a little bit in a very refreshing way, I think.
Oh, well, I guess I can't not do that. I just can't help it, I guess. Oh, but I was going to say, the work on myself when I wrote that, it was kind of pre-diagnosis. It was finding out that some more serious stuff was happening.
This is very recent, right? As we're speaking now,
very recent.
Last few months. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Last few months. But it's an interesting story, at least to myself it is. And I'm making a new album that has songs that are very much about this, and also I'm resurrecting old songs that can totally be about this. Just change the date. Which means, like, have I learned anything? I don't know. I was really unhappy in my marriage, like really, really unhappy, but unable to make the changes I needed to, or when I tried, it just was met with a lot of resistance in a way that really made me feel trapped. And the work I was doing on myself was about, like, going inward to really try and live a life where I'm really, like, conscious of what I'm doing, and I wanted to be the best version of myself. I wanted to kind of really think about, what my intentions are and my actions and everything. And I think in being unhappy, it was really hard for me to, like, grapple with it. And I'm always afraid of confrontation. If I go back to some of my old songs, it's all about, like, I could only confront someone in a song, couldn't do it, like, in real life.
And again, I'm using this somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but my time with my therapist had sort of, like, I think we had gotten all we could out of it, and I kept joking that I was breaking up with her, and it was so hard for me to do, in spite of the fact that it's that it's like a transactional professional relationship. I still couldn't bring myself to do it.
I hear you, right? Well, probably you seem like a very empathetic person, so when you're an empath, it's just really hard. You don't want to hurt people's feelings and the whole load of stuff.
I was like, you did a great job. Like, she's a professional, so she rolled with it.
Yeah.
It was
That's
fine,
good, exactly, as she should. I mean, if anyone gives you flack, especially as a therapist, about breaking up, which I have had, like, I recently, in that marriage, I also had a really bizarre a bizarre experience with the therapist. It was not a tryst.
You're really crossing the streams, Tracy.
I just love that word, tryst. It's not a tryst. It was not at all. But it was weird because, I mean, I'm going to write a book someday, and there's going to be a whole chapter about that and that therapist for sure. But he gave me so much flack about wanting to end it. And he was really weird and defensive, and he lured me back in. It was just like, the bad relationships I've had in my life that I'm trying to work out in therapy. It was like happening in real life. It was ridiculous.
So empathy is part of it, but the other part is, especially with a relationship, the other part is understanding that, that no relationships are perfect, that there are going to be rocky times, and, valuing being able to connect with the things that you saw in that person in the first place. You're concerned that you might just be completely throwing it away, even if that's not a rational thought.
Yeah, you try to find the good. That's true too. That's really true. And I think it's, if it's an important relationship, like obviously my marriage was really important. I felt like uncovering every stone that was a valuable experience to see if it would work and to try and to go to therapy or try to encourage connection. And I think it's very valuable, especially when there's a child involved, for sure. You have to look at things with a different perspective, maybe do a lot of self-work because I know from therapy and from just being on this planet that we all have an ego and we all project our shit onto other people from early childhood stuff. We're all bringing around our maladaptive coping mechanisms. I love that term. But it's really true. And so if you can work on yourself, it really can help a relationship a lot. But what happens when you do all the work and it's still not working? I guess that's when you have to really accept the fact that maybe these two people they'd be better off, if they weren't, in a marriage or
Has your relationship in a certain sense improved with him since?
I think it will.
Yeah.
And I think it's still been pretty difficult. It was a long, long, long process. It was hard. It was not fun. And I think we're still both reeling from it, unfortunately. Yeah, it's really raw. And I'm hoping, someday, maybe we have to both let go of some things. Like I'm going to have to realize that I might never have like that real connection with my son's father, and that's sad, but at least, we're co-parenting very well, and that's good. But I'm hoping for everyone's sake that there will be a connection at some point.
Tell me if I'm totally off base on this, but and this is going beyond just the relationship, but it seems like one of the things that you were grappling with just generally in life, whether personally or professionally, was effectively just going through the motions.
Yeah. I mean, I know. I look back at, life before this marriage and life, whether I was on the West Coast or the East Coast, it doesn't matter. Like, kind of not sleepwalking through life, but being, not really understanding who I was in everything and really knowing myself. And I think that's getting back to that point of like really getting to know myself finally after all these years. It's very valuable, but things, ultimately they might have to shift. And then for me, finding out that I had a breast cancer diagnosis, and I was already dealing with some other health stuff before that even. It was the first time in my life I've ever had any kind of health stuff. And I kind of think it was like my body just saying, okay, already, like that was rough. And, I think the physical manifestations that happen are real from all of the anxiety and everything.
We should say before we go any further, it sounds like you caught it really early and that it's under control. Is that?
Yes, I am so incredibly lucky. I caught it early and, stage 1, and I already had a lumpectomy, and I'm about to, go into some radiation treatments and maybe chemo, but maybe not. So I'm not out of that yet, but I know that I'm very, very lucky that I caught it early.
I dealt with some health things, nothing that huge, but any major health thing you go through, especially if you haven't gone through anything of that nature before, it does put things into perspective, and it does help you get your priorities in order.
Sure does. It really, really does. It's a gift, I think. I can say that because I'm not like sick, but it's really a gift.
It might not have felt like it at the time, and obviously you had your period when you were, playing coffee shops, but you got success really quickly. It seems like, it was that first record. You got sucked up into that like 90s major label or record alternative rock thing.
And I don't think that there's any way. Listen, there are a lot of people who had success at a young age who have who turn out really well adjusted. You seem very well adjusted, but there's no way that you can have that kind of success at that age and it's not going to skew you a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, especially when it's immediate like that. There was no ramp up. I mean, I knew I wanted to be a musician all my life, so that was, whether or not I'm going to be successful or not, I'm doing music. But the success and the fame was like a lot. And I remember in the 90s, it was kind of not cool, though, to be like major label. There was that whole
back when selling out was a thing.
Yeah, selling out was not cool. So my label like paid an indie label, so it wasn't fully indie, right, to put out my first EP as I won't say fake, but it was like as if I had been around a while being an indie artist when I clearly wasn't an indie artist at all. But
you got astroturfed.
Is that what is astroturf?
Astroturfing, it's a political term. It's the opposite of like grassroots. It's like fake grassroots.
Yeah, it was a fake grassroots. But I knew it, like my tongue-in-cheek title, the Liverpool Sessions, was my own inside joke, as if I'd been around so long, and
like you playing the Cavern Club. And
yeah, exactly, right. So I kind of knew it was all bullshit, but I didn't talk about it then, but now I can because I think it's hilarious and so ridiculous. Like, and all those bands back in the day that didn't look like they wanted to be famous or successful, but they did. They were all clamoring for stuff, but they're trying to look like they didn't care.
I think Kurt specifically had a very big impact on that, and obviously he was dealing with a lot of very real stuff, but he shifted the culture in a huge way.
He did. And I felt for him, and I still feel, for him in that way where it was hard. That was, it sounded like he was in a lot of anguish about it too. And you meet a lot of fucked up people. You meet a lot of people who just are, it's like parasites. They just want something from you, and that's hard. And if you're a sensitive person, I'm sure he was, and maybe I'm not as sensitive, but still, like if you're a sensitive person, you're going to you feel used sometimes. You feel uncomfortable. Why is this person talking to me?
Are they talking to me because they like me as a person, or do they want something out of me?
Yeah, exactly. Or they're treating me like I'm some kind of elevated thing when I'm not. Or if I remember hugging one person who came up for a autograph and they were shaking, and it was so bizarre to me. But that is a part of the game, I guess. I
mean, you've probably been on the other side of that when you were younger. You can understand the excitement, right?
I'm not much of a, like, I've never, my first...
You're not a star fucker, is what you're
I'm not
trying
a star
to say.
fucker, exactly. My first autograph was just because the dude was like in the room, was like Chuck Mangione. What?
That's an awesome first autograph.
I know, right? With the hat and everything.
Did it feel so good?
It feels so good. Yeah, it was pretty silly.
You made a very, I would say, a bold decision to. I mean, you told your record label to end a contract.
Oh,
who does that?
Who does that? Well, God, I mean, it was like one of those relationships where it was like. It was just ending, and there was this like war of atrophy. Nobody really wanted to talk to each other anymore. And
War of Atrophy is a great album title. Just
right?
Put that on the list.
I bet someone has done it before. I'm going to Google that. I already knew, honestly, when I really look back at it, I knew that when my first album came out, I was in trouble. I knew that by the second single, my A&R people were leaving to go to Epic Records and whatever, and then things were shifting, and Universal, I can't remember. I can't keep track. It was like Polygram sold Island to Universal, and then Seagram's got involved, and then, it's like...
But these are like corporate machinations. It's not anything having to do with you necessarily.
No, it was all just a lot of corporate stuff, and I just saw that my time was going to be limited. And then when Def Jam came in, and I was trying to get in there with Leor Cohen, and he was like, Tracy, do you know who Leor Cohen is? Oh my God. He's like, Tracy, don't you want to be at the party? Like trying to get me to like you know, I guess he realized that I was an artist, but that I didn't quite have that like stab someone in the back to be famous thing. And I was like, well, I kind of want to be at the party, but can I come in through the back door? Like, I don't need a limo in the front. Like, I was trying to work with them.
You want to be able to Irish goodbye if you need to.
Exactly. Irish goodbye whenever I need to. Exactly.
That strikes me as very savvy, being able to read the writing on the wall, even as you were right in the middle of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
tough.
just clear. I mean, you know, you have this huge single.
Yeah.
Huge single.
Yeah.
Really big first record, and you already saw the atrophy?
Well, there's a song on my first album called One Hit Wonder, and that was like, I don't know, I could just tell. I knew that it was a fickle business, and I was kind of preparing myself. I hope I didn't, you know, what do you call it? Manifest self-fulfilling
self-sabotage.
prophecy. But it just, you know, and I had a manager who turned out to be a real dick too. And like, I should have fired him. Here's what we were talking about earlier. We're going to go back to relationships and not being able to break up with someone who's clearly bad for you. He was so bad for me. And like, he just started, I can't even tell you. Someday in my book, I'm like, I got so much I want to share. But I have to, like, you know, clear it with legal.
But you were young, and he was a professional, and you didn't know the business that well, and you wanted to trust somebody. You wanted somebody to have your back.
Yeah, of course, exactly. But then you realize, like, these people are just really in it for the buck, or the fame, or the glory, or drinking champagne out of a shoe, or, you know, like, really. I just want to make music, and I want to touch people. That's what I want to do.
We talked about the first record. We talked about the third record. Where does that sort of leave you in the second and the interim?
I can't keep track because like there's so many years in between albums too. It's
5 years. I mean, that's a forever.
It's forever. You know. It's like, well, the first one was definitely not my doing it all because of the music industry and stuff. But then the next one, it was like big life changes.
What do you mean it wasn't your doing?
Oh, well, okay. So between my first and second album, it was all of the stuff I just kind of mentioned briefly.
Oh, the hiatus wasn't your doing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. The time. Like I was ready to release an album in 98. So that would have been 2 years after, which is like long enough and I'm ready to get out there. But then the record label changed and then I had new A&R people and they're like, I don't get the artistic numbers. And then go write another hit single and we'll buy you a piano if you go write a hit single.
Sounds like a good deal.
So yeah, right. This piano right here. So, but everything in between the other albums was basically life-related stuff. Life got in the way. There's a lot of changes. And I guess I'm one of those writers that's like binge and purge or something. I don't even realize I have an album ready until I'm like, oh, I've got like all of this stuff. Cool. Let's go make an album.
That's your Behind Every Good Woman piano?
That's exactly. That's my Behind Every Good Woman. Leor Cohen. This is going to be the hit of the summer. Oh, wait, he said, this is going to be the strong female anthem.
I was just listening to the song, and it should have been a hit.
It should have been. But you know what was being played on the radio at that time?
What year are we talking about?
It was 2000.
Oh, okay. So new metal.
Yes.
Woodstock 99 stuff.
Exactly. I was there at Woodstock with Leor. He invited me on his helicopter because somebody, one of the 4 people on the helicopter, somebody like Kevin Lyles or whatever, was unable to go with him. So he asked me to go because I had just performed in their boardroom. And Leor and I had we just had a nice rapport. So I went to Woodstock 99 with him on the helicopter. And I will never forget that day because the energy there was incredibly angry and volatile and a little bit scary. And I remember crying because I'm so sensitive. And Michael Lang, who I got to know now, and I remember he just like anything done by him is always like a little like either behind or late or never happening.
You reconnected with that first record. You went through and kind of reimagined everything. What was the impetus behind that decision?
Well, You may know that a lot of artists go and they re-record their first album, especially if it's owned by
or
the,
they tour
right?
on the anniversary.
Yeah, right. Anniversary. Maybe they do a sound alike, and that was really the idea because Island Record they're gonna own my album Masters in Perpetuity. So the idea was to make a sound alike, and we did do Mother Mother. So that, like maybe I could actually make some cash on, if I ever got a sync license or, and let's see, before then, like with streaming wasn't so huge yet, but I decided that was boring because I was like, I've already done that. And I know it's probably a really good financial decision, but that's not what leads me to do anything.
It is, but have you ever been listening to pulling up on whatever streaming platform you're using and you're like, oh, this isn't the original?
Yeah, like especially if you have good ears. Like I mean, I can listen to mine and I can tell for sure. Maybe somebody might not be able to tell, but clearly I can tell it's not the original. Of course.
You did a 180.
Well, so then the producer that I worked with, John Lechevsky from a band called Late Cambrian, he's really creative and quirky, and we just started to we were like, what if we just let go of any, like, I'm not going to be precious. I'm not going to obviously make it sound like it used to. So let's just open it up. And for me, it was so liberating because I already knew that the album did well. So there was no like insecurities on the songs. I was like, people like these songs. Now let's stretch it out. And then what happened was when 2016 elections came around, if you know what I mean. And the campaign before then, we were talking a lot about misogyny and we were watching this like circus of a man and the way he operated. And then what happened?
You can say it. I mean, you don't have to sneak around it.
Right. Well, I don't like to say his name. I honestly cannot.
Somebody sent a picture, and it's just him from behind, and you could just tell it's him.
Of course, exactly.
He's just such a weird.
Probably just, yeah.
He's kind of leaning forward that weird way he does.
Speaking of being behind him, I actually stood behind him on the red carpet when I had a song in the Bridget Jones Diary soundtrack, and I was standing directly behind him, and it was really weird. Ugh. Anyway,
you could tell at the time that. Oh, not a cool dude.
Yeah, he was not a good dude. I guess maybe that was already clear to me. Very sure, very certain. And anyway, so female empowerment became part of a conversation, and then my producer and I were like, "What if we got other women?" Women you admire from the 90s or maybe women you admire from now, and you ask them to be featured on the album. And that was so cool because the responses from any of the women that I reached out to, it was so nice. And to hear that like some of my favorite singers were actually influenced by my first album, that was amazing.
And you just toured with Jill Solbiel. It sounds like
I just love cracking jokes with her, and she's so incredibly funny, and her writing is like really great. It really inspired me. I really like the way she looks at things and the way she gets the audience, to participate. And her songs are just so damn funny, and they're really smart. She's really smart.
How did the ballet come about?
Oh, that's the best thing ever. It was during COVID. It was like 2021 in April or something. And I got an email from the director of Eugene Ballet.
You're from Eugene.
Yeah, I am from Eugene. So when my manager forwarded me the email, I was like, this is cool. And the guy had said, Suzanne Haig, the resident choreographer, is a fan of yours and is reaching out because she'd love to collaborate on a ballet set to your music. And they also said something that was very intriguing. They said to your new music as well. So that was good to know because I was like, do they want me to do Mother Mother like for an hour up there, or are they appreciating my art for who I am now and at the time? And it was clear, especially when I started to talk to Susie and we started having our creative meetings, that she was all about the new music. I think she'd followed me on social media, so she knew that my music had evolved. And for me, I never thought about making a ballet to my music, but I have thought about
Why would you? That's not it's
right?
not like a given.
No, it's not at all. But I have thought about, cinema or, visuals or, and my new music is way more cinematic and evocative of that.
Has your relationship with that song evolved? Did you resent it for a period?
Yeah, I did resent it for a period because that's all anyone wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And if I played it in the middle of the set, then half of the audience would leave,
There's that funny thing of the bands who play the song 3 times in a set.
That's so funny. Exactly. After a while, though, and I did versions. I'd sing it in Spanish sometimes. I'd be funny. I did that version that's on the Modern Burdens album, which I love. It's like a bluesy 12/8 version of it. I started to come back around to it. I think doing that inner work really helped me keep my ego in check. And part of that was my ego was like, how dare they, request that song? More than that. But then now the flip side is, well, how lucky am I that I have people requesting a song of mine and then they want to sing along. So, why not enjoy that? It's a really cool position to be in.
For all of the difficulties of having that level of success early on, that's why you have a career, right? I mean,
yes.
That set everything in motion, and
You
everything that you have today and is directly or indirectly related to that first record.
Yes. Foot in the door. Absolutely. You're right. Yeah. And I'm proud of it too. The song is so quirky. It's still so quirky. And I understand why, now you hear, or, in the 2000s, and then now you still hear some of the female artists that were on heavy rotation back then. They still are played in mainstream radio. And I get it. Sheryl Crow and Alanis or whomever. But I kind of know why Mother is really still only played in select, maybe alternative stations or Lithium or whatever. And it's because it's so unique and quirky. It really kind of, I'm proud of that, even though, there was a part of me that kind of wished it would have been, one of those songs that's played on every playlist all the time.
You're also literally yelling during the song, which might limit it a little bit.
Right. No, it's true because I remember when we were eating dinner once, it was when my album was first going to come out. And so we got the waiter to put on the album, right? And, we're in this restaurant, it's Upper West Side, and it's all of these old, business people. And I'm thinking about what it's going to sound like when it goes to the chorus. It's not like a dinner party album.
Can you still yell?
No, I don't want to anymore. It's a bad idea. Yeah, I paid the price.
You feel like sort of the angry young woman part of your life is in the past?
I still get pissed, and I'm still.
But it's that silent, judgy kind of pissed.
Yeah, exactly. The worst kind.
You're not mad, you're disappointed.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. Oh, right to the gut. Ooh. Yeah, it's not as outward. It's not as pay attention to me. It's more okay, this sucks.
The next set of songs, I mean, you're obviously channeling some, I don't know if anger is the right word, but it's, deeply personal in the same way those early songs were.
True. It's true. It's just in a different package. And I feel it's a little more eloquent now. It's not supposed to be simple. It's not supposed to run clear.